Let's go out of the Bible.
No, let's stick there a little bit. Remember, the Bible is written by the four school of thoughts.
Okay.
The Elohim school of thoughts, the Yahweh school of thought, the Deuterocanonical school of thought, and the priestly school of thought. Now, how do you identify these school of thoughts? I mean, there are some of them, you can easily identify them because they will tell one story in two ways, like creation story. Genesis 1, Adam was spoken into existence. Everything was spoken into existence. His wife, like Genesis 1 verse 26, let us make man in our image and our likeness, you know. And then they said male and female created he them. So that part is talking about things that were spoken into existence. Genesis 2, they talk about man made out of the clay of the earth. And then from his rib, a woman was made. Another story. Because it's two schools of thoughts defining this. Now, the first school of thought is the Elohim school of thought. These ones, and that is what make Genesis 1 speaks in plural. Let us make man in our
In fact, in
image and
in
our
the Hebrew, Genesis
likeness.
1 is Barashit bara Elohim haaretz nashamayin.
Yes, because
So
you see,
the gods created heaven and earth.
yes, there's a part I'm coming to. That why is it said in plural? It is because it is the Elohim school. But the Elohim, it is plural. Because in singular is El. So it is a plurality of El Shaddai, El Tzibo, El Nisi, El Elyon, El Yahweh, and so El Sabaoth, and so forth. This is what account to let us. So this is what you call the community of the gods. So-
Psalms 82.
So the proper way then you will say, Matomontomo mbadimu barile.
Okay.
The gods.
The gods.
So when you talk about God in plurality, you will say the gods, because you're talking about the 12 of them. That is why in the New Testament, Christ will talk about Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My El, why have you forsaken me? Because in singular is El. So this Elohim school of thought, which is basically made up of 12 gods, has 7 messengers, is 2, which are called the angels.
The Beni Elohim.
Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Samael. Now also all their names end with El, because they belong to the Yahweh school of thought. The Yahweh school of thought is El Shaddai, El Tzibo, El Nis, El what. And the angels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and then their prophets also end with El, Daniel, Ezekiel. So this is the Elohim school.
of thought.
Now the Yahweh school will end with Yah. And then they say God is Yah. And it is why it's introduced when they introduce Yahweh or Jehovah or Jah. So will be Yahshua, Isaiah, Micah. You see it's Ayah in the end. It's another school of thought.
Jeremiah.
And then you have the Deuterocanonical school of thought. Is these ones who always say, the law of Moses said. Moses said if we find someone, they quote Moses all the time, the law of Moses. And that is why some theologian will tell you that of all the books of the Old Testament, the only book or the oldest book of the Old Testament is not Genesis, it's the book of Job. Because the book of Job is the only one who doesn't quote Moses, who doesn't make Moses as a frame of reference or a reference point, because he existed before Moses. But all these ones who existed after Moses, they make Moses as their reference. So that is the Deuterocanonical, which is basically in Swahili they say kumbukumbu la Torati, the remembrance of the Torah, the remembrance of the law. Then you have the other one, the priestly school, the Melchizedek, the Aaron, the Zadok, the Zedek, the priest of David, Solomon, father of John the Baptist. So these are the 4 schools compacted together, and they are responsible for the contradiction. Even the New Testament begin with the 4 schools that are contradicting themselves. They call themselves the Synoptic Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's 4 schools of thought.
The 4 perspectives of Christ.
Exactly. Why the 4 schools? Because these people are obsessed with the 4 cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. The cross. Understand? So if you go to the extra biblical books like that goes into Melchizedek, they'll tell that Melchizedek, or the Trinitarian, who are trying to prove that there was Christianity even in the Old Testament, they'll tell that Melchizedek took the bones of Adam,
the book of the bee and the cave of treasures.
Yes, the Metzafe Kufale and so forth. That Melchizedek went in the cave of treasures, took the bones of Adam, took it into the ark. Because Adam, after he died, Adam was chased from Eden. They live in the cave of treasures. He died. They put his bones there. They minister on over his bones, generation after generation. That is the antediluvial patriarch, or the 12 patriarchs who existed before the flood. Lamech, Seth, Methuselah, Enoch, Noah. So that in the time of Noah, when he was told that the flood is coming, he went to the cave of treasures, took the bones, put them into the ark. Now, after the waters, after the flood, it was Shem and Melchizedek who took the bones of Adam and went to a place called Golgotha, which is why the reason they call it the skull, because the skull of all mankind, which is Adam, was buried there. So they said, when he reached there, he struck the earth.
And it split
in a form of a cross. Then he deposited the bone. That is why also the cross of Christ was planted there. He was crucified there. His blood went down to redeem Adam or baptize Adam. But this is now Christology.
Christology.
Yes.
Christian mythology.
Christian mythology. Because at the end of the day, it's still a myth.
It's not real.
It's not, no.
In fact, I was in Israel a few years ago, and I visited the place called Golgotha. And when I asked the historians there, the best answer they could give me was, it's the Roman Catholics, it's the Roman Catholic Church who said this mountain, this happened, but the Romans were never in Israel. So if it's not here, it's somewhere. Now, if it's not here, it's somewhere. There is a problem there. It does not exist.
You see, even a professor of Tel Aviv University in Israel, they tell you that these things, they were mythologies, they never existed.
They never existed.
Yeah.
In closing, we'd like to take a short break, and we'll come back with another part. Now, maybe talk about a little bit more about the origins of Rastafari, where they come from, the history of Rasta, and how relevant is Rastafari in Africa and other African traditions. Do they work together? Do they contradict each other?